I want to follow up on that Tradepoint Atlantic. The tax breaks right now, they're estimated, what's it, $60 million the first 10 years on materials, and it's followed up with another $60 million.
Which tax break is this?
This is the materials that used to build trade, any facility that wants to go down there and build their FedEx, Under Armour, things like that. Now, you touched on it before, Grammer. You said most of the jobs down there are logistic jobs. These are not living wage jobs. These are all warehouse jobs. And it's corporate welfare that's funding Tradepoint Atlantic right now. They have already asked for $140 million additional tax breaks for infrastructure upgrades.
Right.
And that truck traffic you're talking about coming out of Tradepoint Atlantic was going to be the biggest headache for all of us all. So in fact, some papers did an article this morning where they talked about the poor in Baltimore are a directly result of these non-living wage jobs, which is $15, $20 an hour. You can't raise a family on that kind of money.
Right.
And all Tradepoint Atlantic people are doing is leasing property. That's their landlords. That's all they do. If you want to build a 7-Eleven store down there, they'll lease it to the property no matter what it is. And right now, you've got FedEx, which is 150 jobs total, part and full-time. You've got the roll-off, roll-on job, which is a company which is what, 110 jobs max. And all these they're not professional living wage jobs. They're just logistical warehouse jobs.
Right. So the question is the future of Tradepoint Atlantic, is it lower wage jobs, or is it going to be something that is going to be provide family sustaining wages?
Right, and the tax breaks, we'll never recover the tax. Time magazine did a huge article on corporate welfare.
Right.
They said taxpayers never recover. Same thing in Baltimore City with the stadium. The stadium authority still owes the city taxpayers $450 million.
Right.
So
I have to say, I understand where you're coming from. Personally, I'm optimistic. A couple months prior to the session, you saw, I think there's two sides to this coin that you have to answer. How are they going to work with labor, and what are the jobs themselves going to be? And I think the labor portion, we saw something we've never seen, and is that they came up with a labor agreement with the, I think it was the operating engineers. And they didn't have to do that. But I think, the operating engineers, they're damn good jobs. So I found that very optimistic. My family comes from manufacturing. Can you hear me? The one? Is it on? So I had two grandfathers work at Beth Steel. My dad worked at Beth Steel for a time. I worked at Worthington Steel. And I had the good fortune of working at a manufacturing job. And they, even back in the early 2000s, they were still good wage providing jobs. So the second question is, are we going to build places that store things, and you're going to have people just shuffling goods around, or are we going to be building things? And that's a really challenging hurdle to leap, because it's hard to bring manufacturing here. But with some of the recent announcements, the construction of the wind turbines, I didn't anticipate that being a big market, but now the way it looks, we are going to be building things here. And I don't know, I don't think that's been kind of covered, how many jobs or what those wages are going to be. But I find it optimistic that we are building things. So I understand the concern. I think some of the, there's some questions out there to be answered long term. We have a lot of property here. What kind of more expansive, bigger type of manufacturing operations can we attract here? And I think that's really a big question mark that we've only really started to answer. So I hope I answered that.
And I can also elaborate. I went and testified in front of a hearing with the planning board, and U.S. Wind, and there's another company that want to build the turbines, the bases from one top to the bottom to the top of windmills. And they want to be a part of Tradepoint Atlantic. One of them is U.S. Wind, and there's another company also. And they're looking to bring these kind of jobs to Tradepoint, which would be burning, welding, fitting, electrical, and so on and so forth. And if these are factors, and they do happen, every one of those jobs are good paying jobs.
From
Every one of
Dunlop.
them, which will be a great benefit because we do have that skill set here in this area. So in time, I believe we will be able to see great things happening here. And only time will tell that. And to answer that question also, Buzz, you know, I do not want to see jobs down there. It's not going to benefit families. We emphasize that. We are still emphasizing that. We want to make sure that we bring good things as family jobs here. And I think in time, you will see that. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, first of all, for their transparency and how up and up they've been with every person. And at the same
Not
time,
with the media, they haven't.
the other companies that come here in time, if you continue to build and you bring good jobs and good paying, they gotta pay their taxes. And they pay their taxes through that, that's revenue through the state. That benefits us. So we can get back to 10, 12, 13, 14,000 jobs. That will take care of itself in time. And I think it's a benefit for us to get that. And I think in time we'll see that.
Talking more about the More Jobs for Maryland Act, this is a performance tax break. I understand what you're saying, Buzz. You don't want to see corporate welfare handing out taxpayers' money if we're not getting anything for return. The governor has the pulse of the people. He doesn't want to take and spend $1 and not get nothing back. The way this bill is set up, if we spend $1, we're going to get $2 back. The governor's very, business-minded. And the only way that they can get this tax break, if it's a manufacturing job, 2, if it pays 150% of Maryland living wage. So that's a good paying job. That's the only way they can get this tax credit. That's if the Secretary of Commerce awards Baltimore County that second slot. There's 2 slots. And I'm hoping that he'll give it to us. I'm pretty sure he will, but it hasn't been announced yet. And we hear about tax breaks all the time through Ways and Means, which I'm part of. And I'm not giving out tax breaks. If I want to give $1, I want to see $2 come back. I don't want to be wasting taxpayers' money. That's my money too. I know sometimes you have to spend money to make money, but it has to make good sense in order for me to vote on it. And I understand what you're saying. We don't want to provide welfare tax, whatever you want to call it. We're not doing that, and the governor's very aware of that. We have a tight budget. We have some spending we have to deal with, and the governor's very wise with how he gives tax breaks. And there's a lot into this jobs bill. I could probably talk on it for about 2 hours. The only thing I can say is once the Secretary of Commerce awards it to Baltimore County, we can talk about it more. It's going to be good paying jobs. It's going to attract manufacturing jobs. That's what's going to bring good paying jobs, manufacturing. And I know, like I said, we worked on this bill. There's a lot of moving parts on it. And, we'll just have to wait. And I agree with you, Buzz. I don't want to see people getting money, give $1 and not give anything back. It's not fair.
Well, it's quite a bit of money that's involved right now. It's up to probably close to $300 million they're getting in tax breaks.
Are you talking about Tradepoint?
When you look at the $60 million refundable after another 10 years of the labor materials, plus $140 million they're asking for infrastructure upgrades, which is the highways, roads, bridges, that all comes out of our pocket. Even before we see a penny of return, it's just like Yorkway.
Right.
It's the same deal with Yorkway. When the county bought the Yorkway apartments for $22 million, flipped them over to a councilman, who then flipped them to his friend for $1.5 million. The taxpayers were on the hook for $22 million.
I remember that.
Yeah, and we'll never get that money back.
The governor, I have the utmost trust in the governor when it comes to this. The infrastructure that you were talking about, actually, I think there was a deal made with one of the people that are actually coming to Tradepoint is going to bear part of that. I think, didn't they pledge $132 million towards infrastructure? One of the new, not containers, bulk transportation or bulk carriers. It's off the top of my head, I can't think of. We'll look into it and we'll let you know, but there was some money that one of the companies that's moving to Maryland is going to pay for some of the infrastructure. I think they pledged like $132 million. We want to get back to you and make sure you have the correct information.
Because they won't talk to the media. When I call down there, they won't say anything.
Right, I can't speak for Tradepoint Meeting. The only thing I can say is the bills that we work on in Annapolis and how it's going to affect our district. I'm hoping that the secretary will award that to this county because we need the jobs, no doubt.
I think it's one of the reasons why they put it in for us, Bob.
Right, well, it'll be up, anyway.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that? You said the governor, his bill mandates that they have to pay 150% of living wage for the jobs, correct?
I don't believe it's a mandate, but it's in the bill. I don't want to
That's
give you
the
misinformation. Okay, 150, yeah, 150% of Maryland, minimum, whatever Maryland standard is.
Good paying jobs.
Right.
I worked at Bethlehem Steel from 1970 to 1990. In the late 70s, early 80s, the steel industry was having troubles. The company was trying to negotiate wage reductions with the unions. There was an article in the Baltimore Sun that said that the average steel worker was paid $25 an hour. Well, I went up to the union hall and said, look, I'm getting $12.50 an hour, and I'm supposed to be one of the higher paid people down here, and the Sun paper's saying the average is twice what I'm making. What's going on? He said, Jay, let me tell you how they created the average. Anybody that works for Bethlehem Steel is a steel worker, including the president, the CFO, the CEO. So when he calculates this average wage that they have to meet, are they going to include all the salary people, or is it just going to be the hourly?
No, that's, the state has a standard right now. The state has so does the federal government. They have a minimum wage, or a minimum standard of living.
I understand that.
Actually, the state is higher than the federal government.
Okay.
So,
Right.
and again, they don't get this money unless they create good jobs. And I think it
What I'm
has to be at
saying
least
is-
5 jobs. It's a very,
The jobs that they use to determine whether or not the company is paying this minimum to get the credit, is it only going to be the people who work there, or is it going to be the executive level included in that calculation?
no, the
Because
calculation,
it really skewed it that when Bethlehem Steel was doing that.
right,
And I don't want to see them play that game.
but it's not, the calculation's already been done because we have a minimum standard of
I
living.
understand what the minimum standard is based on Maryland wages all over the state.
Right.
All right, but I'm talking about when they compare that standard to the company that's applying for the tax break, the employees of that company, which employees are they going to include? Everybody, which would include all the executive level people who are making millions of dollars, or just the people that are working for them?
I understand what you're saying, but I'll tell you what, if we can get CEOs and people who run businesses to work at 150% of state living wage, I think it'd be great. No, this is for new jobs created, and only for new jobs. Only for new jobs.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
thing is
I
that,
would like to add to a couple of these comments here about the wages, okay? Because we did some analysis of our own, okay, in comparison, okay, to the Social Security Administration, which essentially has what is projected, okay, to be the total employment, okay, at Tradepoint Atlanta, which is going to be around 10,000 people, okay? And what happens here is when we did this, okay, an article of the 2004 Baltimore Sun said there was $700 million worth of direct salaries going into Social Security, which created the entire economy of the west side of Baltimore County. There were comments about dealerships, there was comments about restaurants, there was comments about just prosperity everywhere. And frankly, from what I understand, that prosperity is still out there. Has anybody been out there? They just got a $150 or $200 million award to renovate the place through Barbara Mikulski. So with that stated, okay, Maryland, okay, from what I read, okay, according to the Maryland, okay, calculator, okay, for wages, said that a single individual, okay, living wage is $13.64 an hour. Now projected off of that, okay, if we have 10,000 people working here, okay, with permanent jobs, not the 21,000 that were projected, okay, for the construction phase, but just for that alone, that's a $300 million, okay, direct salary, if you will, okay, if everybody at that facility making $13.64 an hour, okay, will pump into this local economy. Now, if we go with the numbers, okay, out there at Social Security, when we divide that 700 million by that, which they said it was 98, but I'll round it off to 10,000, it was $35 an hour, which would then pump into this economy around here $600 million per year. But the whole caveat is where do we fall with the numbers? Because we're still dealing with a model here of a homogeneous, okay, employer. What we're doing here is we have, what is it called? The company, the parent company is called Redwood Investments, that's what it was. And they own a portfolio, and one of their investments is Tradepoint Atlantic with a railroad and all these other things. So what they're basically doing is acting as a, and the problem I'm looking with this model is we're basing it off of Jay. Jay's saying, I work for one employer. That one employer had control of all of these salaries, all these wages. The condition here is we've got several different employers. And what is going to dictate, okay, that scale of welders and electricians and all these people? Will it be like everybody's going to be union, like the operating engineers are right now? So these are a lot of the things that we're looking at, okay, because we don't even know how many people are working at Tradepoint Atlantic right now. And I use that term loosely because it's not Tradepoint Atlantic. Tradepoint Atlantic is a generic term for the entire body of companies that are working there. Okay, like you said, whoever it is, blah, 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 blah. So we can't get misconceived about it's not Tradepoint Atlantic, the employer, it's Tradepoint Atlantic, the landlord.
Same thing as this is Baltimore, but we have Dundalk and.
Perfect analogy, perfect analogy. So when we're looking at these employers, we really need to focus in. And the big problem is here, is I believe this is beyond the state, it's beyond the county, this is an international issue. We belong to what we call the Rust Belt. And all of our manufacturing jobs, Broning Highway, we have nothing down there, okay, but people moving boxes from A to B to Z. It's going to be an I-terminal. It's all going to be a distribution flow of logistics, like you had mentioned. We're going to get the big boats. We're going to go through the channel. We're going to come up here. Everybody knows about it all over the world, East Coast, the whole 9 yards. Okay, new paradigm in distribution. The question is, how does it raise the standard of living in this area here? And this is the real challenge. And the problem is that Mr. Beeler and people like Mr. Beeler are asking you to please look in your crystal ball and tell me that everything's going to be good. And the fact of the matter is you can't.
Nope.
We don't know. This is all risk. So when they're saying, Buzz, we're going to dump $150 million into this facility down here, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, we're at the casino. What we're hoping is that the president right now is 15%, is what I'm hearing. 15% corporate tax rate, 20% drop. You got to think about what that's going to do for sucking all that money back into this country. But we can't have legislators that are beating them up with sanctuary city stuff.
Thank you.
Saying like, oh, guess what? I'm going to sue, okay, Mr. Trump, okay, for sanctuary stuff and beat the FBI deal out of Greenbelt.
Exactly right.
I think I've said enough. If I haven't, I can go on, but I'm starting to lose my breath.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much, okay, for this and your time.